Greetings, vloggers, followers, and podders. Dustin here with Dustin's Dynasty. We're here today with another edition of this week's vlog. Today is the 350th special. In a few days, I will be 40, which I'm still trying to conceptualize and come to terms with on my own regard. And ultimately, 350 vlogs. And it's ironic that we're at 350, and now last year we said 300, and that was a whole other issue, which I'll get into later on. But being at the number 350, and we've been doing this for 5 years now. And it doesn't there's a lot that's happened in the past 5 years, some good, some bad, and how we got to where we were then as the world was different then. And as I had came off of a really bad situation 5 years ago and tried to close the door on that situation and move on. Now, if you haven't met me before, my name is Dustin. I am autistic. I have mental health challenges. And like I said, I've been doing this autism thing for about 25 years that I've been diagnosed. Prior to that, I've always had difficulty in some way or another. In I was started my journey in a preschool for children who had deficiencies through our local intermediate unit, or some would call it a regional agency of education through our state level. And then I went to public school, and for the most part, I've been in the same district all but 1 year. The first 3 years, 3 school years, I was mainstreamed. And then in the third grade year, I was not doing well emotionally and was sent to emotional support classroom again through our intermediate unit, but in a district building. Spent 4 years there. Went to a junior high that was, well, sort of new. Of course, everybody experiences junior high in that way. But where my school and my neighborhood was at the time was reconfigured to go to the smaller junior high in preparation for renovation. And through all that, I exhibited many behaviors and only did 2 years in junior high, and many setbacks, many challenges. And that is also the time that I received my autism spectrum diagnosis, Asperger's syndrome as it was then, after running the gamut and of different acronymic diagnoses. I came upon that in 1998 by one of the world's renowned experts in Pittsburgh, where I'm not too far from. And within 5 minutes, it was pretty obvious that I had Asperger's. And to be honest, back then you weren't given a lot of advice. You were given handouts off of a printer and movies to watch like Rain Man, Forrest Gump, things to read, things we like, things we didn't like. There was not a lot of knowledge as there is now. It's been 25 years since I've been diagnosed. Also, just established some mental health challenges along the way. Through it all, in teenage puberty, we talk about puberty is a forerunner, and when you're autistic, it just fuels the fire to a very unmatchable standard. And as such, my parents had to place me at the age of 15, and including spending the my 15th birthday in a psychiatric hospital that I'm not mad about, but it is kind of sad when you think about it. So ultimately, I did get placed, when I was 15 in a residential treatment facility. I resented my mother a long time, a long, long time for that, and because she had to make the decision to keep me safe, and I couldn't see that until a few months ago. And it's very fortunate, while we're talking about this, that I had parents on both sides who were very, very, very involved in my mental health treatment, very involved in my care, even though at times they disagreed and even separated for a little bit because they couldn't come to a consensus on what that care should look like upon exiting the residential facility. It is it is through those ways of understanding and seeing as I mature into the man that I am now. Before we get into the last 5 years, which was a very significant roller coaster in my life, um, we look into that time, and I don't really surpass the amount of support I needed, let alone the challenges that I was presenting. I was on the door of institutionalization, and you say maybe in the early 2000s that wasn't a thing, but it was very possible when there had seemed to be no hope and concern and caring. And it was my father who stood up and said, "We can do this. We have the faith. We can do this. He can come home." So I've been home, and I've been not in a psychiatric hospitalization for over 25 years now. Very proud of that fact. Not been in any sort of placement for over 25 years. Um, Moving forward, I went to my high school. Even though during residential, I had spent a year in a different district high school, double the size of the one I was in when I moved back to my home district, and did fairly well with the right accommodations. And likewise, some of those accommodations carried, and some I even phased out of, and life was pretty normal for me. In high school, I was in the Bible club. I was on the swim team as a manager for a year. So I had a very good high school life, all things considered. And the thing that I think I had to take a step back and go into learning support, because if I felt that I had went back into the emotional support classroom, which I had been through my in my elementary and junior high years, I had felt we would have been setting up the same targets, the same triggers, and we would have been back right where we were in our educational journey. Actually at a point where I was doing well at that point. So we're looking, at post-secondary about 21 years ago. And my intent, I think, for the longest time, and my mother's, was to go to post-vocational at some point. Our state here in Pennsylvania runs a facility. It is in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. It's called the Hiram G. Andrews Center. I wanted to go there, and I did go there, but just the avenue to get there and the documentation, the proving, the ability that they could understand that I could do it and not be a behavior issue and not cause problems. And for some time, even the staff there did have reservations regarding it, and even the vocational counselors in my home district did. Um, I surpassed all of those, and eventually went. But in the interim, I had went to a day program under the clubhouse model, and I've been there 21 years, and we can jump into that also later. But getting to vocational training, it opened up the doors for more independence in a sort of way, and also peers, being around peers, a lot of peers who are autistic, have challenges. Some have the same diagnosis as me, and many were the same age or around at the time. And it was a very well experience. I wish I had been more open about things and been more honest to communicate with people and know how to communicate better, instead of being the shy, awkward one that I was at the time with those who I felt were against me. And in fact, they were for me. And they had seen sides in me that I knew I really was at, and but I wasn't willing to get to that level of understanding at the time. So I got through the year that I did my studies at the vocational rehab very well, did very well in grades, very minimal issues. Um, I even took the Sydney bus, to the inner city person passenger rail to visit my sister on the weekends in her town. And I did pretty well. So I graduated from there, and there was some debate about coming back and doing. And we ended up back at the day services that I am at now. And I've been there for 21, it'll be 21 years in July of 2025. And, last year I had not been in the best frame of mind, and I wanted to not be there anymore. And there was this conundrum of being there for 20 years as it being a negative thing. But through all the events, and we'll go through the past 5 years here in a second, I learned that I needed that support, and I still need that support. But moving on into where we are, we've done a few other things. We went to community college part-time. I've had a job for 15 years. And so where we got to where we were as far as the creation of Dustin's Dynasty was through a fundraiser, and ultimately COVID hit in 2020, and I had been in a really bad situation. I will talk a lot about medication relapse a lot, but I had not been doing until earlier this year. I've not been taking care of my mental health in the way that it needed to be done, and ultimately there were some issues with the first apartment, and when COVID hit, that gave the right recipe, and just so much happening in the world of uncertainties and things not being met, things not being taken care of, that I had to forgo the first apartment and start back at square one. Now, mind you, if anybody who has not been around in 2020 realizes the state that we were in, we had lockdowns, we staggered our schedules, we wore masks where we had to go. And it was a very challenging time. And at a time when supports were supposed to help me, they were not. And in that process of having to move back in with my parents after nearly 2 years, and it was a challenge for all of us because my mom was in her final years before she retired from her job, and she was working from home, and it was just and the world was so uncertain, so different, yet we try to find some sense of normalcy. And even with not professionals not coming in the house, like they not being able to see me in person like they were, or people therapies not happening the way they were supposed to be, appointments not happening the way they were supposed to be. So things were different. And to fill the void, even though the website Dustin's Dynasty was born in 2018, it really didn't get a kick and get a start until 2020. And about 5 years ago is when I started the vlogs. We started with two a week. We went down to one. And we've been doing this for about five, and we're now at 350. And it's just ironic in a way that my 40th birthday will be next week, and we're celebrating with my family this weekend. And that's a whole other conundrum that we get through and love and appreciate. But we're here and we're alive. And real quick to touch on 40, you think about being 40 and autistic, and I mean, there are people that are older than me, and I see it a lot on Facebook or different places. But it seems like a shocker to me, or more so, unbelievable that I'm here a few days before 40, living independently, having a part-time job, getting from place to place without any assistance. And I've survived. I've done so much for my life. I've survived. I've done well. And the last few years have not been a piece of cake. Literally, they have not. But I've overcome my struggles. I've overcome family struggles, got through it. And, for being 40 and being able to do the things that have done, and will do, and living a life where I am thriving. And even though sometimes autism is a dirty word some people use, that we can't do things, or that we don't want to do things, and that is simply not true. It's hard to believe that I've been living in the same apartment for almost 5 years now. It's hard to believe that I've been working for over 15 years now. Yes, people come and go, things change. And frankly, I've handled everything that has gone on quite well. And there's 5 years really that the world has reshaped itself and been volatile and has changed so much in the past 5 years. It's definitely been, a roller coaster ride for sure. Some of it could have been helped, with me calling attention and taking care of my mental health sooner. than what I had, gotten myself back on track, and understood the reality of independence, understood there are prices to pay and consequences to be had if I don't take care of my mental health. What psychiatric hospitalization really looks like, what the criminal justice system looks like, what these things look like if I don't take care of myself and be the person that I need to be all the time, not just some of the time, but all the time too. And it's just been so much we've been through, all these changes, and especially the past 2 years, I would say we've had a lot of change, and quite frankly, I've handled it quite well. And change always seems to be happening. It never seems to stop, but overall, quite well. You think the world has a way of explaining itself and being the hardest thing. My dad over almost a year ago had a stroke, and he is in bed bound right now, but he other than that he cannot walk. And through all those struggles, through everything that I've been through everything, through it all, I have survived. I am thriving. I am doing well. There's been so many changes, like I said, and it's been so hard sometimes. And there have been times when changes were real and hard that I wasn't taking care of my mental health. I would crash and burn. Things wouldn't be the best for me. And I had to pay the price for that too. And now I know I can never pay that price either. So, it's about learning and having a good locus of control. Autism, being autistic, is never easy. It's hard. There are things we all struggle with. And, even though it may be some way for a neurotypical person to get through the world, it's 10 times harder for an autistic person in most cases to get through the world and survive the challenges and things that are hard for us. Now, granted, that's not an excuse. That's just how it is. And it's not easy. And there's parts where we want to give up. And I've had many times before this year that I have wanted to throw in the towel at everything. And I wanted to just run away from everything because it seemed hard, it seemed challenging, it brought anxiety that to no incomprehensible mention. It was hard, it was tough, and it really brought me down a lot of times. And especially after changes or when something was new or something was different or something was uncomfortable, it brought a lot of tension and a lot of anxiety and a lot of anger and a lot of feeling and a lot of resentment that I had for a long time, over things that I had no control over, or things I didn't think were fair, or things I didn't see the whole picture of. So these things are hard to understand. And it's part of being autistic. It's understanding what things we do as autistic people to cope and how we do the best that we can in those situations, and that doing those things is okay, and being autistic is okay, and asking for help is okay. And I think I'm getting to the point where I understand all those things and being a better person overall, and not being angry or resenting people or just calling people out and not applying my filter. It's very important I understand all these things because it's how we survive in the world, how anybody survives in the world. And it doesn't give you an excuse. There are some things in life where you don't get a pass because you're autistic. And it depends on your skill needs, of course. But for me, just because I have the ability physically to do it, that doesn't give my neurological condition does not give me a pass not to do it. And, I had to learn that the hard way many times. Sometimes it's knowing that you don't have the backing that you once had, or the support, or the people that are going to come save you from your problems when you have problems, and that sometimes you have to figure it out the hard way and pay the price. And it's not always easy. Autism itself is not always easy. Yes, there's things that are great about autism, and there's things that are not so great. You talk to anybody out there, autism is like the palpitation of the heart. You're always thinking about something. You're worrying about something. Somebody's always worrying about you. If you have a love, so if you as an autistic person have somebody that loves you, they're worrying about you more than what you think because they feel that maybe you're not being understood by society. Maybe you don't understand as an autistic person that you're not being understood by society. And it's a definitely a slippery slope. It's like you're guessing everything. So through it all, through everything I've learned as I approach 40, and I'm so grateful to be alive because there was times I didn't think I would be. There were times I didn't think I was going to make it on my own. There were times I didn't think I was going to survive the night. There were times when I was angry at anybody and everything I thought I needed to be angry at. There were times I didn't think I was going to make it, but I know I have to make it now. There are people who love and care about me. There are people that I need to be there for them. And there is people out there in the world that are still wanting to hear. And I cannot thank enough for all the followers, whether you're on Facebook or any of the other platforms that I am on. I post a daily blog post every morning at DustinDynastyUSA.com, and I share a little snippet of my autism through all my challenges and everything that I've been through. A little snippet every day for about 3 minute read. And I do these vlogs every week, and I'm excited that we're at 350 and we're not stopping. And we're gonna be a little more better about it, and we're gonna be more cognizant of it. And it's doing all of these things to make sure that my story doesn't go untold, my experience doesn't go untold. I know there are people out there following me, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Family, you are the amazing rock that keeps everything going, even though, there was times I didn't see that. I didn't understand that. There's family that I need to support, and I'm seeing that more and more every day too. So, family, you rock. The treatment team, you are awesome. You keep me going, and you have been well. Work is amazing. Everybody in my world is amazing. Whether you're a bus driver, whether you're somebody, if you are somebody in my life that is helping me along the way, you are amazing. And so, I'm going to close now, and I want to thank you for listening, as I always do. I'm shocked that I'm going to be 40 next week. And it's been a long road and we're not stopping yet. So I'm not going away, and I plan to be here and hopefully learn and grow and continue to grow. So if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe to my video. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Pinterest. That handle is Dustin's Dynasty. I'm on the internet. That address is www.dustinsdynastyusa.com. And lastly, I'm on Linktree, where you can find the handles to all my podcasts, all my socials, everything. That handle is Dustin's Dynasty under Linktree. Again, I want to thank you for listening. Let's have a great weekend, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.